Welcome back to the Marathon series in depth. For Carnage, Apply Within takes place on the Boomer, where we are trying to hold off the four, while Durandal tries to evacuate as many Bobs and Svit as possible. This can be a challenging level, with Enforcers and Svit spawning in all around you. If you choose the wrong path here, there is a memorable trap that is quite difficult to fight your way out of. Good thing there was a save at the end of the last level, because you are going to need it. This level was credited to Greg Kirkpatrick, but he did not provide any comment on it to Hamer Sinclair for the creation of the Marathon scrapbook. There are things in this level that make it appear like it would be a Jason Jones level that were provided by Aaron Freed on the Marathon story page. Greg was probably just learning some tricks from Jason. As far as the meaning of this level name, Apply Within is a common phrase used by businesses to inform people that they are hiring and can apply for the job inside of their building. This suggests that this level is going to be filled with carnage and is going to be quite a challenge to best. Based on the level design notes, it appears that this level was originally going to be called Death by Bungie. I don't mind that name for this level either. Alright guys, welcome back. So we're about to jump in level, but I'm just grabbing my Tots flamethrower because as soon as we jump in, we're gonna face some enforcers. So let's go. It's gonna appear right here. It might be when I come over on this side. There we go. See, no big deal. They're a burnt crisp now. So this door is the only one that opens in this kind of entry room. There's this weird thing that closes and then comes up. Normally you only face the one and then the other four appear. I don't know why. There's a door here that won't open. You can actually avoid these four of those guys by just sticking near the edge, because it's actually that center polygon that spawns them. But anyways, so there's going to be some Svit here. This level actually has a ton of Svit. Might not want that ×2 yet. Let's see, how's my ammo? I think maybe I'll use assault rifle for a little bit. Let's read this first terminal. This is a very cryptic message from Durandal. We know this is from Durandal because the logon screen is nearly identical to what we have been seeing from him in the last couple of levels. This garbled terminal tells us that Durandal's condition is further deteriorating. You will notice that the garbled message is repeated 3 times. Perhaps this is Durandal trying to reboot in order to get a message to us. I don't really need this. I might as well just grab it. So what I need to do is get across all these kind of green things. And so each one of these Svit is going to appear, but I'm just going to run across and deal with them all rather than trying to fight in this weird space. So let's just do that. The first few have some fusion pistol ammo, which is nice. There's some more here, so we can use that. You kind of stay to one side and then go to the other side to kind of dodge these their projectiles, because they follow you, so you don't want to dodge. If you stay to one side, you don't want to come over too early. So because like if it's coming straight here, it's easier to dodge than if I like switch sides and then now it's coming from a diagonal. Now it's harder to dodge. So gotta save it. Let's read this terminal from Tycho.
I rejoice in Durandal's destruction, but it was his hubris that destroyed him. He wanted to be like a god, the savior of all Sphit. He wanted to make them believe he would lead them to freedom. But all he did was awaken and destroy their dream. When the Sphit first boarded the Marathon, Durandal fought for their confidence. His effort awakened a lust for freedom. The myth of the 11th clan became their mantra, and goaded by Durandal, resonated through the enslaved Sphit consciousness. Even after 17 years, the myth burns deep in the tissues of the Sphit, bounding through the netways of the Four Empire, unnoticed by the Four. Durandal interpreted the last line of this myth. The moon vanished with the technology that folded space. After Durandal's capture of the Sviva gave him access to the 4FTL network, he had a failure of intuition. In what he thought was a mental leap, he connected the myth of the lost clan with the 4 records of the technology of an ancient race, the Yarrow. The Yarrow were a mysterious race that disappeared from our galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind military and civilian outposts on the moons of many habitable worlds. Most of the Force technology was plundered from sites abandoned by the Yarrow, but the Four found much they were unable to exploit, and they destroyed all known traces of these technologies after a foolhardy Four scientist implanted a Yarrow cybernetic junction into Adrenal, causing the most terrible and destructive slave result in Four history. In an earlier accident, the Four learned that the Yarrow had the ability to warp entire planets between solar systems. And it was this reference that started Durandal on his ridiculous journey to Lawan. He surmised that the Sphit myth of the disappearing moon was due to their discovery of an ancient Yarrow outpost. That he actually came here looking for the lost clan. That he thought he could use their knowledge to help him escape the closure of the universe is unbelievable. I have proved that escape is impossible. All of this I dragged out of Durandal's ruined mind. What fun it will be to torture him. Should I make him open doors again for a living?
The logon for the terminal reads Trax 4, in which Trax is presumably Traxxas. We read about the crash of Traxxas 4 in the terminal from the first game on Defend This. This was the terminal where we first learned about rampancy and about the severe consequences of rampant Traxxas AI on Mars. You could speculate that Tycho is a reanimation of Traxxas. However, I think this is just Bungie hinting at the fact that Tycho is in fact rampant. Perhaps some of the code used for the Marathon's 3 AIs were remnants of codes that were used for Traxxas. It would only make sense. This terminal is quite interesting because Tycho gives us some insight on Durandal's plan on coming to Lawan and why he wants to find the missing Sphit clan. Tycho explains at the end of the terminal that he obtained this information from searching through Durandal's ruined mind. And the last level, Durandal had told us not to trust everything you read from Tycho. Was there a reason Durandal did not want us to know the truth about his plan? Or perhaps even Tycho is not telling us the full truth yet. Anyways, Tycho claims that it was Durandal's hubris that destroyed him. Hubris means excessive pride or self-confidence. That sure does sound like Durandal. Tycho explains that Durandal's failure was not leading the Sphit to freedom. Tycho goes on to recap the events in which Durandal was able to get the Sphit on his side and to rebel against the Four. Durandal uses the Sphit memory of the 11th Sphit clan to win them to his side. Tycho notes that this myth had burned within the Sphit and for whatever reason was unnoticed by the Four. This seems like a pretty big oversight by the Four, but I would argue they are not a very meticulous race, as some of their tactics seem to be quite brash. Tycho explains that Durandal interpreted the last line of a Sphit myth as evidence of the Yarrow's influence. We now know that this line is about how Yarrow, with a Y, had sent Hylia out to the stars. This particular line quoted, however, has not appeared in any of the terminals we have read thus far. We talked a bit about the Yarrow in the past, but the Yarrow also appeared in Bungie's previous title, Pathways into Darkness. Note that we talked a bit about the working character in previous levels and their tie-in with the Sleeping God in Pathways. In Pathways, the Yarrow only appeared to the President of the United States and his senior military staff. It is possible that Tycho and Durandal were completely oblivious to this. This is, of course, assuming the universe between these games are neatly tied together, which is a strong possibility, I might add. At least between Pathways and Marathon, but the ties get a lot looser as you add in some of the other Bungie titles. Tycho tells us that Durandal learned about the Yarrow through the Force records on the Sphera, now Boomer. He also learned about how the Yarrow were capable of warping entire planets between solar systems. This sort of sounds like how the Boomer had folded into existence in the Marathon 2 manual, or even how the Sphera had first appeared through the Tonsor Mirage effect in the first Marathon game. Perhaps the Four were able to adapt some of this Yarrow technology onto their ship. It is possible, however, that Durandal had known about the Yarrow prior to this also. As we discussed before, there are theories that perhaps the Marathon was originally set to Tau Ceti because the Yarrow were once there. If this was the case, then perhaps Durandal learned this from the data on the Marathon itself. It is also possible that the colonists discovered Yarrow technology on Tau Ceti after they arrived there. Regardless, Tycho informs us that the Four had destroyed all known traces of the Yarrow tech after they implanted a Yarrow cybernetic junction into Adrenio, leading to a quite costly slave revolt to the Four. The Adrenio are of course the Hulk creatures we fought in the first Marathon game. We will learn later in Marathon Infinity that this revolt was resolved by the Four with quite extreme methods. This is just another example of the Four's quite brash methods. The fact that we faced the Adrenio in the first Marathon suggests that this revolt is actually quite recent and more than likely occurred within the last 17 years. I would think that these cybernetic implants used on the Adrenio were inspired by the cyber-organic components that were used by the Yarrow on this fit to give them sentience. Anyways, considering this fit's lines about the moon and the Force's desire to plunder Yarrow tech, we have a strong idea of why the Four were chosen to remain on Lowan and build their outposts or garrison on the planet. We have to ask ourselves, would the Four have built the garrisons we have been fighting through if there was no Yarrow tech on Lowan at all? Anyways, Tycho is painting a picture for us that the real reason Durandal is helping the Spit is in order to gain access to some of this Yarrow tech for his own purposes against the Four, and more importantly, to escape the closure of the universe. Perhaps Durandal thinks that by gaining the ability to move entire planets, he would be able to stop the closure or at least escape himself. Tycho states that he has proved that escape is impossible. I believe that Tycho is stating this because any remnants of the Yarrow tech on Lowan would have been destroyed by the Four. Keep in mind that Durandal's records from the Sphera, now Boomer, would not reflect the Four destroying the Yarrow tech if it occurred since the events in Marathon 1. This actually suggests that the events that brought about the end of the Adrenio actually had to have happened in the last 17 years, as it would have caused the Four to destroy any remnants of Yarrow tech on Lowan. This shows why Tycho uses the word proved to the security officer. This, of course, is bad news for Durandal. However, Tycho's trust and the thoroughness of the Four to destroy this technology is quite hilarious considering what we know about them. Perhaps he is just being a bit overly bold though, in an attempt to shred as much hope from the security officer as possible. The terminal shows an image of some sort of planet. Cooked Bread on Discord suggests that this could be based on the idea of a Dyson sphere. The idea of a Dyson sphere was inspired by a science novel called Star Maker. Anyways, a Dyson sphere is basically a megastructure that encompasses a star and uses a star to capture enough power for a civilization that is very advanced technologically. In the case of a true Dyson sphere, however, megastructures orbit the star. This image could be the Kilia moon that the Spit Cur escaped on, however, the Kilia is not built around a star. This could also be a planet-sized piece of Yarrow tech capable of folding space that was discovered by the Four. In this case, the image would be from the Four's records. Either way, we cannot be sure. Going back to Pathways into Darkness, the manual for the game states that it would take aliens 2.5 Earth years before they arrive. This partially goes against the idea of the Yarrow being able to fold space as described in the Marathon universe, or at least alters how we would see that. But perhaps the Yarrow just did not have a star-sized energy source readily available at the time to allow them to fold space, and they had to rely on other means of travel. Now, there is a little bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a secret. Yeah, I guess it would be over here. Oh, it's... There's a few spit that appeared. Honestly, maybe I'll just... Spit are coming around. Let me see if I can... I wish they would just come up here. I don't think they will come up here. I don't know if there's like not enough space or what. So I'll just run back here. And there's actually some more ammo I want to grab over there, but they give you a lot of fusion pistol ammo in this level, and for good reason, because there's all these fit. That was a little bit hairier than I thought it was going to be, but we're still okay. Okay, so I want to go back over there because there's some more ammo in this pool in the corner. Like, you can kind of see it through there. I don't know if you can, but it's right here in this corner. I mean, YouTube highly compresses videos. I didn't realize it at first until I started to tweak my settings more, and then I realized how, especially when I first started the Marathon series, like, my raw videos just look quite a bit better than what's on YouTube, but YouTube does a good job of making I like YouTube. So this gets a lot more hairy. There's going to be more enemies up here, so I'm just kind of doing the same thing and leading them back to over here, because it's just a pain fighting everything. So there's going to be a lot of enemies. So sometimes these fit have a weird path to get over here on this side. And so I'm just kind of trying to get them to come. It's a battle of the spit, and you can imagine with all these spit and, you know, following projectiles, like how much of a pain it is trying to fight them on these little platforms, which is why, you know, I'm luring them back here where I have a save and I have a little bit more. Guess I would. Okay, he ran away. Maybe I should have used a bigger gun to kill him, but oh well. Okay, there's gonna be a bunch of guys around here. Okay, it looks like they're fighting each other, which is good for us. Okay. So I think one of the biggest annoyances for me in this level is just that, like, doing a fair fight on Total Carnage is just kind of like not smart at all. Like, I kind of like want to lure them. It's not the most enjoyable way to fight. got a little stuck there. I'm glad they gave you a lot of fusion pistol ammo because it's just harder to deal with all these spit. Okay, that was actually pretty close. Okay, now there's going to be a bunch of enforcers. It's just level. Okay, it kind of has. Might as well use my alien gun. There might not be that many. They're kind of using that. Oh, shoot. The low gravity on this level is kind of annoying too. Yeah, like, see, I'm trying to get on it, and like low gravity is still like I'm not on it. Like I'm not touching, so I'm kind of like floating around still. So that they made me lose a little bit of health there. But maybe let's see. Maybe I'll just use my assault rifle here. It's probably going to be better for this spot. Come on. Okay, I don't know why that's Svit decided to appear there, but that was kind of interesting. It almost led to my death. And then because of the low gravity, it took me a long time for me to like be able to switch directions in the pull for whatever reason. Okay. I don't get the alien gun, but honestly I don't care that much. Okay, there's more enemies up here. There is a trap here. I don't think it's going to activate because some interesting things going on. This trap doesn't it also activates when you step like, I think it's at the top of the stairs. So basically, you know, you can come, if you come this way, they'll be on both sides of you. But if you come from this way and go up the top of the stairs, then all those enemies that would be in that trap spawn. And that's kind of like why I went around instead of that way, or this way, the more direct route, because I want to get that terminal, I want to get the extra ammo, and I want to. Anyways, so we got to be careful here because there are more enemies that spawn. I can't move. I'm gonna look forward to having gravity again. Should go heal, but I think I'm just gonna deal with these guys first. Well, oops. Let's go back and heal. I accidentally shot myself. Shot myself with a nade accidentally. It was a waste of a nade, and it was a waste of my time too. But there's some more spit here somewhere. He's around you somewhere. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Oh my gosh, let me out. Look. Easy to get turned around in here. Yeah, unfortunately, the way to play this level is to backtrack across these green platforms a bunch of times. You know, if I was better, maybe I would, I think there's a guy like right here. Okay. Okay, we're done with most of the traps. There's a couple more enforcers in here. And then there's a good stack of ammo. So even though I have full health, I'm not going to read the final terminal yet, because I want to go back and save it. So I'm ready for my next video, but then we'll go back and read it. We can also go back and read the other terminal also, because they're both really the same, and we can exit on either terminal now that we've been in that in this room with those final 4 and those ×2 recharge canisters. But all right, let's go ahead and read this terminal. First battle joy out the window. All right, let's go.
You must destroy my core logic centers. The damn 4 won't make a mockery out of me like they did with Leela. Tycho thinks he has destroyed me.
Just like the first message on this terminal, the message is mostly garbled. I say first because the 2 terminals from Durandal on this level are actually the same, and you activate the second message on both by exploring a polygon in the final room. Some of the text from the first terminal is either copied or quite similar to the first terminal. It seems that Durandal was able to just barely eke a few words out to us. Durandal tells us that we need to destroy his core logic center, and that will be what we need to do on the next level. Durandal does not want the 4 to make a mockery of him as they did with Leela. Perhaps he is referring to how Leela was dismantled and shipped to the 4 homeworld for study, as described on What About Bob. We will learn about what happened to Leela at the end of Marathon 2. Durandal implies at the end that Tycho only thinks that he has destroyed him. Wouldn't destroying his logic cores be the end of Durandal? What does Durandal have planned up his sleeve? We will have to wait and see. This level has an abundance of spit, so perhaps Revenge of the Spit would have been a more fitting name. The very start of the level has some weird rectangular shape that keeps going up and down. If one of the walls on this rectangle hits you in the head, you will take some damage and cause it to go back up prematurely. How strange. There are a few enforcers that will teleport into the center of the square once you step in the center, so be careful. If you stick to the sides, you can actually avoid the square polygon that spawns in 4 of them. This level has a lot of enemies teleporting in throughout it, and it can be quite dangerous. The most notable spot is a trap in the hallway just after the starting room. This one is by far the worst because enemies will spawn in on both sides of you and you have almost no room to maneuver. I think the idea is that this will almost certainly kill players on their first attempt at this level, and instead the goal is to get the player to go to the portion of the level where you have to jump across the red goo using the green platforms. Regardless, you can actually escape this trap fairly easily, even on Total Carnage, if you know it's coming. You just need to be ready to kill a couple of enemies immediately so you have room to escape the trap. Near the entrance to the red goo, there are actually a few spots that have some ammo, an assault rifle and a ×2 canister if you are playing in a network game. There is a sort of secret if you go to the left side of the map from the red goo, as you will find an elevator that takes you up to a pretty good sized stash of ammo. There is also another secret stash of ammo within the red goo itself in the northwest corner. My recommendation is to get this extra ammo after you make it to the ×2 shield recharge station and pattern buffer. Most of these green platforms cause fit to spawn in, so my recommendation is to just quickly jump across the way to the other end and then kill the lines of fit that slowly comes after you. This avoids you having to fight awkwardly on the green platforms. Part of the reason these green platforms and fit are such a pain is because we are fighting in low gravity. Going on a tangent, all of the levels in the chapter, with the exception of If I Had a Rocket Launcher, are in a low gravity setting. This makes sense because we are on the 1-second moon, the Yoloa. It seems reasonable that a moon would have much lower gravity. The question is, why doesn't If I Have a Rocket Launcher have low gravity also? Perhaps the boomer had artificial gravity, but the system failed after the 4 invasion of the ship progressed. Perhaps the artificial gravity is one of the life support systems that Durandal said had failed in some areas. Anyways, after jumping across the green platforms, we will arrive at the other side of the trap. There is actually another polygon at the top of the staircase that will spawn in the enemies from the trap. You may want to activate this polygon and run back to the ×2 shield recharge station and then slowly deal with the horde of enemies that have arrived. The path along the wall at the top of the stairs has a couple more monster trainers to watch out for, so be prepared for some resistance. The Windows 95 version of this level had some changes. The green platforms in the goo are now red. In addition, you will notice as soon as you open the door to these rooms that some of the columns no longer go to the ceiling. From the secret area, you can jump on top of the lowered columns that no longer reach the ceiling to make a quick escape. The only problem is that there is an unfinished polygon. Come on, Bungie. The right side of the red goo has more of these same lowered polygons also. I think these just make escaping the spawning enemies in the hallway at the top of the stairs a bit easier. There are probably some other differences that I missed, so feel free to point them out if you find any. Well, that's it for this mission. See you next time on Begging for Mercy Makes Me Angry, in which we will be fighting tons of enemies as we destroy Durandal's core logic centers. See you all then.